So here are some of the names of the elite awards that were handed out. And at the top, yes, Bijan Robinson, the Doak Walker Award for the best running back in college football. That is not a surprise, although I'm sure Corum, Brown, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there was another one or two that might have been a part of that, at least that discussion. Jim Thorpe Award, local young man who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson, TCU, went to Midway High School, won the Jim Thorpe Award. Fantastic. I've seen some All-American teams, and there might be 15 of those. Like CBS Sports has theirs. The Athletic has theirs. There's the AP. There's this and that. I haven't seen him as a first-team All-American, at least on the ones I've looked at. He won the Jim Thorpe Award, and congratulations to the young man who was destined to play where his uncle, LaDainian Tomlinson, played at TCU.
Yeah, I remember his senior year clamoring for Matt Rule and their staff to offer him, and they would not. They did not, based on what the return was, they did not like his size, which, the NFL's evolved a little bit in the 3 or 4 years since then, and I think Tre'Vius is going to be just fine, finding a spot at the next level. But I remember at the time they were looking for, bigger, faster, stronger dudes and NFL bodies, and that was a big part of why you saw their draft class last year have so many guys, go and have opportunities. That a lot of that credit goes to Matt Rule. Dave Aranda finished the polishing, but Matt Rule got those guys onto campus, and that's one thing Nebraska fans can look forward to, is that he is going to evaluate really well, and he's going to develop really well, and then he's going to get guys drafted. And I didn't listen to his whole introductory speech, but I'm sure that was in there somewhere, because that's just his MO and his staff's MO. But Tre'Vius, yeah, I don't think he was big enough to fit their mold. And, then when they got down to it, I remember signing day rolled around and Tre'Vius popped a graphic saying he was committed to Baylor because they had finally offered him there late in the process. And yet there was something wrong, because 5 seconds later, the graphic was deleted. And I remember being live on the air what just happened? I know I saw that. And then it turns out, after getting off air and finding out what was actually going on, that basically he had decided to commit but not sign, because TCU and Gary Patterson were starting to show some interest, and he had a visit coming up there. And Rule and them were like, well, if you're not going to sign with us, we're not going to let you go visit TCU, where you'll probably sign if you don't sign here right now. And so they deleted the graphic. We just pretended like it never happened, basically. He went and visited TCU, and he ended up signing with TCU, and 4 years later, he ends up winning a Thorpe Award. So that was kind of how all that unfolded, and people were like, he's from Waco? How did he not end up at Baylor? That's why. He was always kind of destined because of LaDainian Tomlinson, like you said. Great young man. Yeah, he was a little bit undersized compared to everybody who's looking for the 6'1" safety and things like that, but he won the freaking Thorpe Award. So throw all that crap out the window, man, with some guys.
I asked him, I remember talking to him his junior year and saying, you're going to start going to camps, and you're going to start getting offers, and these things are happening. What is choice number one? Not knowing that he was going to say TCU, but that's what I thought, but you never know. He could have been I really have always wanted to go to USC. I don't know. Who knows? I didn't know the kid all that well, just from, doing his games. And he said, no, TCU. I said, okay, what's choice two? And then he paused and he said, anybody who offers me if TCU wound up not doing it. And I said, do you feel confident in getting a TCU offer? He goes, yes. And I said, well, you're a pretty confident guy. He said, yes, that's true. And he's a very confident player. He always has been. And he did. I saw his tweet last night. He said it was, quote, I done manifested this. And he really did. You think about holding out as long as you could. We have all seen kids get kind of desperate towards the end, and you have to take that offer, and it makes it really hard. Then they usually wind up transferring because they're in that spot where I was waiting for that one offer. It never came in. I just didn't really want to go to these other places, and that was my first choice, and it's hard when you have that in your head. He sat there and played the whole process out and let it come to him, and really did bet on himself. And then every step of the way, I get, because of his size, that he could have doubters, but all you have to do is watch the film and go, the size doesn't matter, because he's so fast and so quick and instinctive that, what does it matter?
He's on a senior highlight tape. Pop on a senior highlight tape. He's playing 6A football in the state of Texas, getting his team to the state championship game, and they had a bad showing in that state championship game, but beyond that, it was an incredible year. He was a big part of the reason why. Had so many, like, they're about to lose this game. Here's Tre'Vius with a scoop and score for like 65 yards out of nowhere. Oh, they're about to lose this game. Here's Tre'Vius with an interception. Like, he was incredible. So point being, we saw him. We're not surprised by this. We wouldn't have predicted that he was going to go win a Thorpe Award, but none of us up here are surprised in the slightest that Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson went out and had himself a hell of a college career. So happy for him. Thrilled for him and for Midway football as well, where
Absolutely.
he played his high school ball.
So you had Tanner Mordecai, who's gotten a lot of awards the last 3 or 4 years, the quarterback at Oklahoma, then SMU. He was on the same team at Midway. Now, one question by 365 Sports. I'm not sure if this is Levi and or Emery about the size of Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson and Thomas Everett, former Baylor All-American Thorpe winner, played in the NFL, Buccaneers, Cowboys. Both 5'9". Everett was probably about 6 to 8 pounds thicker as far as maybe a little bit more bulky. Thomas Everett, incredible player. Not a Hall of Famer in the NFL, but a great player. Of course, drafted out of college by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, back to
Who's
this
faster?
one. Huh?
Who's faster?
Man, I tell you what, I think it'd be hard. I don't know. I would think maybe Tre'Vius a slight tick faster. Thomas listens to this show. Thomas, let me know. Text me. He does. He listens to our show. He loves our show. So does former Baylor running back and receiver David Mims from Dangerfield. All right, tight end award, John Mackey. Brock Bowers, young man from Georgia. I thought Michael Mayer, at Notre Dame might get this. But this is not to complain about the winners because there's only 3 or 4 probably in this conversation.
This was a two-man race between the two of them. But if you watch Brock Bowers this year, he is not like he is. Sometimes you look at him and that's a stereotypical tight end thing that he does, and then there's all these things that just outside the norm. I mean, a lot of teams run that little tight end around.
Yeah,
they run it like Baylor runs it at the goal line. Georgia ran it at the 22-yard line, and Brock Bowers had a 78-yard touchdown run. You know, that's how he's a little bit different.
Yeah, he's super crazy athletic and explosive and all that. I mean, I think, you could have gone the other direction and been fine with that. I don't think this was one where it's like, this guy's the guy, and if he's not the guy, then the other guy got screwed, or this guy's the guy, and if he's not the guy, then this award's bunk. No, I mean, you had to pick somebody, and I certainly think there's a great case that can be made for Brock Bowers, and you can also go a different route if you so choose, like you said. But I think that I'll say this: I'm not surprised that Brock Bowers won that award. I'm not surprised in the slightest. But yeah, I see where there's a mayor from Notre Dame could have been a great selection as well.
All right, so that's that one. The Davey O'Brien Award, Max Duggan. He's in New York City tomorrow. Now he's in New York City right now.
Let's also say Brock Bowers is on undefeated #1 Georgia and a huge part of what they do. So that's probably working in his favor as well.
There's one more sheet, the one before that, Garrett. We're still on the first one, I believe. The Davey O'Brien Award, Max Duggan wins that award. The Maxwell Award, Caleb Williams. And now there's a note. The last 8 Maxwell Award winners, which is for the best player in college football, has won the Heisman Trophy. So Williams wins that one, the Davey O'Brien, which is, by the way, a former TCU star. And that goes to Max Duggan at TCU. Now let's go over, there's a lot more to get to. The next level, Biletnikoff Award. Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, that was an award that you could have gone a different direction. All these you can, but I know there's definitely a case for Marvin Harrison Jr. That was a name that you heard a lot, but I thought Jalen Hyatt had a super special year. I mean, the Alabama game was like, you talk about like your Heisman moment. I mean, that was that, and that was his Biletnikoff moment, I think. And yeah, he put up crazy numbers. Part of me was kind of side-eyeing it a little bit just because of the offense that he's in, and I'm only giving payback to all the voters from about 10 years ago when there were Baylor receivers that were lighting up. It's like, oh, that's that gimmicky offense. And now it's like the one that everybody wants to embrace and hug on and act like it's the coolest thing ever. But I didn't knock Jalen Hyatt for that in my mind at all.
Still got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he went out and had himself an incredible year. I mean, obviously Tennessee faded down the stretch with a couple losses that really derailed their bigger picture goals, but he was a terrific player. And I don't think that's like, oh my gosh, Marvin Harrison got snubbed. I don't think that at all. I think that you could have been right either way, and certainly Hyatt was deserving.
I'll also make an argument in that offense that if you have 7 catches a game of an offense that's trying to run 90 plays and your 7 catches are that impactful, that it's even more impressive because they're trying to run as many plays as they can, and the ball's going all over the place. 2 or 3 different running backs can have, but we've seen it. Like big,
to me,
big
what
numbers.
Harrison's impressive part is he stepped up. We knew he was a great recruit, the lineage, history, whatever. He stepped up when Jigma Smith went out. And Ohio State had some actual issues, plus who went to the NFL, and he was the alpha. Again, it's hard to vote for these. It's not like I don't just sit there and go, oh, this is these 3. It's hard to do it. And so, again, I saw some bluster about the Biletnikoff Award. We've already done the John Mackey Award. Go ahead, Craig.
There's going to be bluster over every award because
there is, because
yeah,
these are elite players. Yeah.
I mean, just pick who you pick, and as long as it's not an egregious slight of somebody or some homer pick, then I don't think that you really have to feel bad about picking this guy over that guy. And in this case, Marvin Harrison versus Jalen Hyatt in particular. Going back to the Mackey, I know there's a lot of arguments about Brock Bowers isn't really a true tight end, and you can have that argument. But he's listed in that category, is he not? That's not what he's listed as on the roster. So, you can go back and forth on every award. You can have Duggan versus Caleb in this category or whatever. But, yeah, Jalen Hyatt was deserving of the Biletnikoff. Yeah. That's silly.
All right, back to the graphic. We mentioned the Mackey Award. It's already the Outland and Remington Award. Olubatimi from Michigan. He's a transfer from Virginia. And I tell you what, when I was watching them play against Ohio State and I was watching the game against Purdue, this guy is phenomenal. And he was a transfer and ends up winning those 2 elite offensive lineman awards.
Yeah, and I kind of felt the best offensive line, in my opinion, this year was Michigan. I know, and I'm not alone in that. So it's very fitting that those awards come from that offensive line because they are old school road graders all the way across.
Yeah, they were fantastic. He was probably, I guess, I don't know, I hadn't thought about this category at all, but if there was a transfer of the year, I think he's
They have one.
Oh, do they have the transfer of the year?
We'll show you that in a minute. Yep.
I had no idea they actually have that award. But, okay. Then, he would be one of your finalists for that and certainly have a very strong argument. But, yeah, very deserving. Michigan's O-line. It's a big part of, what I kind of wonder about with TCU is how does, TCU hold up in the trenches? I mean, I know they got some big, tough guys of their own, but, it just feels like Michigan kind of plays that other level of that Big Ten style that I don't think by any means is, unbeatable or anything like that, but I do wonder if they're not going to be able to lean on TCU just a little bit, in the semifinals. We'll see though, and Oluwatimi will be a great challenge for the Frogs and vice versa.
All right, so more of the list. 365 Sports. A lot of you making comments on it. Any questions you may have, and the text line is 254-339-1122, and also the chat room is firing away. Kicking awards and punting award. Luke Rosa, Christopher Dunn. Had a huge year. Mooney from Michigan was a part of this, and I believe a kicker from out on the West Coast in the Pac-12 was one of the finalists. Christopher Dunn was huge. Adam Korsak from Rutgers. Ray Guy Award for the best punter in America. So special teams to me, you see a team that's messed up, a team that might have 3 games they could have won. Most likely one, they just may not be very good, but also their special teams might be dysfunctional. So I think those are huge awards. Now, one page alone for a guy that I thought, for the most part, did not have as dynamic a year as he had last year. In Will Anderson Jr., the Lombardi, the Bednarik. I had the Lombardi on there. There was a third award. I forget which. The Nagurski Award. Yeah. It was the Nagurski Award, excuse me. Will Anderson won all 3 of them. He's back-to-back winners on a couple of those. And he ended up with a huge year. I think I always have that in my head because he just seemed to be out of whack against Texas. He lined up offsides. He didn't play well in a couple of their bigger games compared to what we saw a year ago, but he ended up being probably a unanimous All-American before it's all said and done.
Will be a top 3 pick in the draft, more than likely, for depending on the teams that don't pick quarterbacks. You would assume the Texans are going to pick a quarterback at number 1. After that, I think there's a couple teams that right now, as the draft order would fall, are not going to pick quarterbacks, and Will Anderson is going to go. Like the Eagles are going to have a really high pick. If I would faint if he got past the Eagles, who have the
3rd, 4th, or 5th pick. Right?
Yeah, the Lions, or who they have somebody's pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I mean, he still can potentially win the Lot Impact Trophy as well. So it's been a busy week for Will Anderson, and he's going to have a really cool shelf in whatever home office he eventually has, or sports room or whatever. He's going to, just from this year alone, but much less the last couple of years, have a cool looking couple of shelves in that area that he can look back fondly on, and wouldn't surprise me to see him add some hardware from his NFL days coming up as well.
So here are some of the unique awards that they had last night. Drake May, Freshman of the Year. Bo Nix, Most Exciting Player. That one seems to kind of almost be made up. I'm not saying he didn't earn that.
Yeah.
Transfer of the Year. Now you have Caleb Williams winning the Maxwell, and you have, there's another, and the kid from Michigan, the offensive lineman, the young man. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback from Washington, is the Transfer of the Year. And in this day and age, there might have been not much of, even a thought that there was that award. But because of the transfer portal, now more than ever before.
Here's why I say Michael Penix over Caleb Williams. Everybody knew that Caleb Williams was going to play well this year, so it's not as much of a surprise. If you hadn't seen Michael Penix play in the year at Indiana, and he's coming off an injury as well, and Washington was so moribund, going in this year with a new coach and all this, and oh great, Michael Penix is going to be there. Well, that could be interesting. I thought that elevated them from just to a bowl team, and he elevated them to a team that was in contention for the Pac-12 title pretty much until the end.
Yep, and of course they'll play Texas in the Alamo Bowl, Valero Alamo Bowl down in San Antonio.
Garrett, can you put that back up, please? Okay, thanks. When did the Transfer of the Year award start?
I've never heard of it.
And the Most Exciting Player, I don't remember that one.
Never heard of that either.
Missed that one, but I mean, I'm not complaining.
There usually is a freshman All-American team, but I'd never seen the Freshman of the Year, and so there were like 20-some awards handed out last night.
I mean, Drake May, that makes sense. The most exciting thing, Bo Nix definitely fits that category. Transfer of the Year, I mean, you guys just kind of broke it down. Although I will say, on Caleb Williams, I don't want to fault guys just because, they've already, proven something. You know what I mean? he won the Heisman last year. He doesn't have to win it this year. He already won it. It's we knew Caleb Williams was going to be good, but still, if he was the best transfer, he's the best transfer. But I'm fine with giving it to Penix. Oluwatimi would have been another guy, and there's others as well. Michael Penix had a fantastic year for the Huskies. A lot of Indiana football fans watched him and thought he was probably the best player they had, but had no idea what was in store for him. And I'm sure would love to have him back, but he went on to bigger and better things and did really well for himself. And now he's coming back, and that's going to give a lot of, faith and hope and firepower for Washington heading into this offseason to build on. I love that he's coming back, and I love that he's being acknowledged because he was very deserving of that award.
So those are the awards from last night, the 5 through 10 in the Heisman Trophy, and then the various awards, again, handed out last night on ESPN.